So Mary, one of her oldest titles in the church at least, is the Mother of God, or the Theotokos, which I think means God bearer, and then we've kind of in English we typically speak of it as the Mother of God. So Theotokos was the first, as I said, the first Marian doctrine declared by the church. This was in 431 at the Council of Ephesus. So I know that sometimes this is maybe a controversial title for Mary. I know it's a fundamental, for us as Catholics, this is a very fundamental title for Mary. And as we're going to talk about, it really speaks to Christ in many ways. But as we first get into this, Thomas, maybe you just want to speak generally, the first kind of thoughts that you have about this title, maybe why it's important that we have this title for Mary.
I think you gave a great intro that Mary's kind of like a double-edged sword for people. She can be a stumbling block to the church. She can also be a gracious bridge for people. And she can be tough even in like a devout Catholic's life and in kind of understanding and cultivating a proper devotion towards her. But understanding Mary as the Mother of God, we're going to talk about this. It ties in every crucial understanding about Christ and his divine and human nature. Without it, we really wouldn't have an appropriate understanding of orthodox and accurate Christology. So it's pretty crucial to understand Mary as the Mother of God. A lot of times when you look at the Marian doctrines, if you look at the church from the outside, you might think, what is with this improper elevation of a creature, right? Like what is with this to a woman? But really, none of the defined doctrines and dogma on Mary is really ordered towards Mary herself. It's always ordered towards Christ and a proper understanding of who Christ is in relation to the Father, who Christ is in relation to us. What's interesting is Theotokos was being used before 431 when it was declared, but that's kind of the nature of dogma and doctrine. That's not formally defined until there's a reason to define it, because until there's an argument, you're not going to have to resolve an issue.
But I think what you're saying is really important. It's not that this hadn't always been believed, but there was no need to just formally define that title for Mary. It's not that it was never not true. It had always been true. But there came a time when heresies arose, particular heresies about the nature of Christ, that this dogma of the Theotokos needed to be at least formally defined. So instead of just saying like Mary is the mother of Jesus, which is actually true. So many times in the Gospels, we hear Mary described as the mother of Jesus. So that's certainly true. But I think that, again, this emphasis that Mary is the mother of God is to emphasize that Jesus isn't only man, but Jesus is also God. He is one person with two natures. This doesn't mean that Mary created Jesus' divine nature. But mothers aren't mothers of natures. Mothers are mothers of persons. To be a mother is to conceive and to give birth to a person. And so Jesus was a person with a divine nature and a human nature. And so in the same way that we can say that God died on the cross for us, we can say that God was born. God was conceived and was born for our redemption. And so therefore, if Jesus is fully God in every way, Mary then is his mother in that sense. She doesn't precede him in eternity again, and she doesn't create his divine nature, but she is still his mother. In an analogous way, like our own mothers aren't the mothers of our souls. Right? God breathes our soul into each and every one of us. Our mothers don't create our souls, but they are still our mothers. They're the mothers because they conceived and gave birth to each of us as persons. And we happen to have one nature, and that's a human nature. So again, this title, Mother of God, if we start saying we can't call her the Mother of God, then the question is, who is she the mother of? And again, so it always points back to Jesus, and then we start to get into some of these heresies that were present in the early church about the nature of Christ.
Other heresies were coming up where individuals were saying that Christ, wasn't divine, right? Or that Christ did not have a human mind, right? There are so many conflicting and competing parties to kind of claim Jesus that like the church had to provide solid Christology, and Mary was kind of the solution. Mary's kind of the solution to all those false claims. So I think those heresies, this idea that Jesus wasn't full, he was only human, he wasn't divine, or that this claim that he didn't have a human mind, those might help us understand more why Theotokos, why that title is so precious and so crucial.
Absolutely.
And why it's so connected to Jesus.
So for those listening, I mean, even if you're not a Catholic, but if you are a follower of Christ, mainstream Christianity does accept, of course, that Jesus was fully God and fully man. And so I would just encourage you that you should be able to accept this title for Mary. It doesn't mean that you have to become a Catholic necessarily, just if you were to accept this title. But I think you can just logically say that Mary is the mother of Jesus and Jesus is God. So therefore, Mary is the mother of God. And that's the sense that we're talking about. You don't need to be afraid that anyone is saying that Mary is eternal or that Mary is in any way equal to God. But it's just, again, recognizing that Christ is man, but he's also fully God.